certain things in life are inevitable. We already know what some of the stereotypical ones are. We know what some of the typical ones are. But I would like to add my own entry to those particular sweepstakes. How about being able to log on to the internet on Wednesday at 7 p.m. with alarming regularity and seeing something waving around on your screen, hearing a voice disembodied, probably coming from behind said object, basking in the extremely low production values, and realizing, yes, it is inevitable that you are seeing me, Malcolm Tent, and that you have once again either willingly, unwillingly, accidentally, purposefully, but no matter what, fatefully have stumbled upon this week's episode of Tent Talks Tunes, baby. Oof. Tennessee Tuxedo said TTT, but I'm living it, baby. I just love to do this thing on the internet every single Wednesday night. I think I'm crooked. Not in my business practices or my world outlook, but my picture. I can't tell if my picture is off center or not. I really don't care. Off center is merely a different way of saying eccentric, and I've sort of made a good living off of being an eccentric all these 58 years on planet Earth. So welcome aboard to my low budget, in the spirit of cable TV set, to which you guys are welcome whether you're watching live on Facebook at Wednesday 7 p.m. or if you are checking out an archived episode on my YouTube channel, or if you're looking at the archived episode here on Facebook. Glad to have you all here. Welcome aboard. I drink a big gulp of Danbury tap water to you. And I clear my throat so I can address you much better. Well, you saw by the placard, I've got a website, www.malcolmtent.net. I actually updated the sucker a little while ago. I hadn't done that in a while. I was having server problems, and then I actually just kind of forgot about it a little bit. But yes, malcolmtent.net, your one-stop chop shop for all things related to yours truly, is up to date and just chock full of data ready for you to mine. And I guess that's technically the first issue on the bulletin board, because as you know, on Tent Talks Tunes, we like to check the bulletin board and check the mailbox before we get deep into the matter at hand. Let's see, what else is on the bulletin board? Well, we got the Punk Rock Flea Market coming up. Yes, that is in Southington, Connecticut. Excuse me, on July 17th, 2022. A mere matter of weeks away. I will be representing in full force. If you're wanting to see Tent Talks Tunes in person, come to Southington. Don't know the exact location. What is the exact location? 168 Center Street in Factory Square. That's 168 Center Street in Factory Square. You will find me and a whole bunch of other vendors. I will be underneath a 10x10 pop-up. I will have a couple of tables full of records, tapes, and CDs. And I will be attempting to sell every blessed one of them. And you get a big double dose of personality plus whenever you stop by my table and see what wares are on offer. So that's a very exciting bulletin board item. Another bulletin board item I'm wearing in reference to people who've been saying and asking me, Tent, what the hell is up with the Bloody Apostles? We haven't heard anything about the Bloody Apostles in a while. Well, I'll tell you. The Bloody Apostles are still in the game. We're kind of laying low right now. We do have our record at the pressing plant, even as we speak. We have a 6-song, 7-inch EP on the very fine, or more likely coarse, record label Hell's Headbangers Records. Are doing the Bloody Apostles record. we're basically, as everybody knows, we're at the mercy of backed up pressing plants and supply chain issues and blah 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 and yak 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 and duh duh duh. The bloody apostles, as potent as we are not exempt from that. But yeah, the record is happening. It is coming out. We just don't know when. And once the record is out, you should be seeing a lot more gigging by this group, this Murder Junkies, Profanatica, Anti-Scene super group that I play the bass for. So put that on your calendar and gaze longingly at it, whatever date that might be. Let's check the monitor real quick and make sure that I am indeed live. Hey, it looks like I am live and people are tuned in and are commenting, but of course, on my phone I can't really see everybody who's tuned in. But let's see. Timothy Morrison says there's a sweet pinball arcade in Factory Square. Oh my God. You know what that means? That means you people are probably never going to see me again. Because I do indeed fancy myself to be a pinball wizard. Excuse me. I was there at the dawn of the video arcade age. I certainly played my fair share of Pong and Pac-Man and Ms. Pac-Man and Donkey Kong and Asteroids and, oh man, Breakout was one of my favorites. But I will always be a pinball player at heart. You can't see, but to the right is a 1976 Williams pinball machine called Blue Chip, which sits proudly in my living room. Poor thing's not working too well these days, but she looks really good. So if nothing else, I've got a big, full-sized work of pinball art in my living room. So, Timothy, thank you for the tip on that. Whatever money I may make on the 17th in Southington will most likely go into some pinball machines. Oh well, what are you going to do? So that's an item on the bulletin board. This is an item on the bulletin board. This is an item that's kind of on the bulletin board. You can take a look at this and it might look kind of cryptic. It says 246 works in progress, race, auto, BW. What does that mean? Well, I can read my own shorthand, usually, not all the time, but quite often I can read my own shorthand. And I know for a fact that this is a reference disc pertaining to TPOS, my label, TPOS release number 246, a work in progress. I've been editing and chopping and splicing and whipping audio tracks non-stop for weeks on a few different projects. This is the most pressing one right now. I have a deadline to get this into manufacture by the end of this month. And the only thing I'm going to say about it is if you attend the devotional Devo fan convention in Cleveland, Ohio in September, and you're one of the lucky ones, I think we're going to go for the first 100 through the door. If you're one of the first 100 through the door, that is subject to change, but that's the way it stands right now. You will be receiving whatever this finished product is. And if you're as gaga about Devo as I am, you're going to like it. And even if you're not, you might like it. And if you don't like it, it is your right to refuse it and let someone else have it. Either way, someone's going to be happy, pappy. Making people happy. I'll drink to that. Okay, that's the bulletin board. Let's check the mailbox. We got something in the mail this week. This is the kind of mail that I really, really like. This is utterly cryptic. There's no explanation. I don't know where it came from. I don't even know who this is, but apparently, excuse me, there's a band called Sperm Church. It's got a picture of, it looks like a very dead rabbit on the front. Features somebody named Sanity on electronics and Trevor Dunn on bass. And it's got some really, really intriguing song titles. One entitled Consider Yourself Left-Handed, Put the Baby Online, martyrs, badgers, and other rodents. I'm really intrigued by this. This arrived in the mail, my mailbox, P.O. Box 3626, Newtown, Connecticut, 06470. Completely unexpected, completely unsolicited. I know nothing about these guys. I don't even know where to send something in return. There was the return address was a CD manufacturing facility. So it's cryptic. I don't know what's going on with this, but I do know that when I hit the road to go to Charlotte, North Carolina this weekend, I will be listening to this. And if I have the presence of mind, I'll give you guys a full report on exactly what this is, because I'm very intrigued. So Sperm Church, whoever you are, thank you. I do appreciate it. And if you want me to send you something in return, send me a message and give me your address, and I will do so. All right, gang. Pretty quick and to the point this week. We've checked the bulletin board. We've checked the mailbox. Let's talk tunes. It's been a very good, exciting couple of weeks for yours truly. I've been out there in the field. A couple of weeks ago, I was selling records in New London at the second Sunday market that they have down there. And this last weekend, I went to the North Haven Record Show in, as you might have guessed, North Haven, Connecticut. And I also visited a couple of record stores. I went to Red Squirrel Records in Wallingford and a relatively new one called Static Era Records in Milford. And I particularly like those two because each one of those was opened by former customers of me. Yes, people who used to shop at my store have opened up record stores of their own, which I think is pretty damn cool. That really floats my boat. I like that a lot. So I'm already prejudiced to like these shops because I already know the people who run them. I like the people who run them. And I'd like to think that I raised them up right when it comes to running a record shop. And by the evidence that I saw, I think I am correct in that assertion. Because I found some cool stuff, and I want to talk about the stuff that I found. Because, let's face it, if you're tuned into Tent Talks Tunes right now, you might agree with me that record shopping and browsing and digging and crate digging is the most fun you can have indoors during daylight hours. It rules. Can I get an amen? Can people show me some thumbs and some hearts and some smiley faces? Maybe even some grim faces. I want to see the switchboard light up. I want for the monitor to go crazy with thumbs up. Ah, there I see one. You gonna tell me you guys don't like records? Oh, there we go. It's the 20-second delay. I should have known. Yeah, there they go. You people know what I'm talking about. You guys have the exact same problem that I do. You love browsing through records and things. So let's take a look at some of the stuff I got. Well, the first thing that I always took a lot of pride in at Trash American Style, my old record store, was the fact that we had the free box. When you walked in the front door, immediately to your left, there's a great big bulletin board, some shelves, and a rack where people could put flyers, hang up notices and posters and things like that, leave stuff off for free, and have things on display. And we had some amazing stuff come through the free box. I'll admit that if somebody put something in the free box, excuse me, I would let the public have first crack at it. But if at the end of the day the stuff was still there, I'd dig in myself. I admit it. I got no qualms about that. To this very day, I've got a pair of hiking boots that somebody left in the free box. That was probably 25 years ago, and I still got those hiking boots. They were free in my own store. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. So it really made me happy to go into Static Era and Red Scroll and find free stuff. Free magazines. You guys know my love for the print media. And the fact that there are still print magazines, it's not all just blogs and slogs and sogs. And I don't know if people still do pogs anymore. But there is actual paper with ink on it and stuff in it you can read. I love that. So 2 issues of Razor Cake, which, from what I've seen by the 1 issue that I've read so far, very much follows in the tradition of Maximum Rock and Roll. It's mostly, I think it's just about all punk rock, or what they say these days is punk adjacent. It's a pretty good term, punk adjacent. Written by fans, and they seem to mostly have pretty good taste. So I got 2 issues of Razor Cake, which I will have a lot of fun reading through. And you guys have heard me talk a lot about the Bridge and Tunnel Crowd, which is a magazine from New Haven, which has an exceedingly eccentric point of view. This magazine, called the Connecticut Auger, is quite similar to the Bridge and Tunnel Crowd. I thought it was kind of the same people, but apparently not. Apparently the Connecticut Auger is not even printed in Connecticut. Philadelphia. You have to write to Downstairs Danny in Philadelphia to find out what's happening in the Connecticut Auger. Heck if I know. But it's kind of the same deal. It's, oh boy, here's an ancient Russian map of some country. There's hockey reports. A full-page ad paid for by the Committee to Tax Yale. Very, very similar. So I'm down with this. I have not read this yet, but skate reports from Connecticut. Skate tough or go home. Connecticut Auger, an actual printed magazine with a weird-ass point of view. I like that. I like it a lot. Now, while I was digging through the bins, let's see if I want to make sure I get all the names right of the places where I found these. This is not, I don't consider this to be advertising. This is simply news reporting. I just like to reflect upon where I've been and what I found there. Okay, at Static Era, they had a few boxes of 45s on the front counter, and I found a few. And if you guys are like me, the best action in the world is in the used bins generally, and the cheap bins specifically. Now, if you've seen previous episodes of Tent Talks Tunes, you've heard me talk a lot about the cutout bins, the remainder bins, the leftover bins, the bins where all the unsold records go to die. Whether it's the fault of the artist or more usually the fault of the record label for printing up too many copies, to, like, how do I phrase this properly? They print more than people want to buy. If a record starts having some kind of chart action or radio play, and it's selling respectably, the record companies will typically say, we have a hit on our hands, and start printing far more than is necessary. And then they don't sell, and then they end up having the ends snipped off of them, and they get dumped at a discount price in the cutout bins. Many, many, many a great record has gone to die in the cutout bins. But that is where people who love to dig find some of the best music ever. So I don't think the cutout bin's really a thing anymore. Maybe if I'm wrong, you all can leave a comment and correct me on that. But in a used record store, the cheap bin is still very much a thing. Because there are far more records that nobody cares about, that no one's ever heard of, that nobody particular wants, than there ever will be like Beatles records that people will buy no matter what. And you find some really, really interesting things in the cheap bins. And so I found a few 45s, none of which, actually, only one of which was a band I'd ever heard of at all. I'll talk about that one first. A generic Atlantic sleeve from the 1970s with the telltale Atlantic promo label. You got mono on one side and stereo on the other side. Right away, even if it's not a good band per se, just the label layout is so cool. You got the classic design in not only one, but two different configurations, one for stereo and one for mono. That is already a masterpiece of design. Functional and attractive. And I'm one of those dudes, if you go to a record store or a record swap meet or whatever, you'll see me standing there, you know, with a great big pile of 45s. This is a very short stack. But I'll be there with a great big pile of 45s looking at every single one of them with the specs. And I'll be squinting, and I'll be trying to read what's on the label. I'll look at every single one of them. And that's the way you got to do it. You have to look through, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds, if not thousands of junky, crappy records in order to occasionally find one that looks interesting. And all of those records that look interesting, maybe 1 out of 100 of those is actually any good. So it really takes a certain kind of psychosis to do this. You know, you really got to be fairly nuts in order to dig these records out of the literally thousands that are on offer typically. But what can I say? I love the thrill of the hunt. I like the chase. I wouldn't necessarily say that the chase is better than the catch, but I do enjoy both. So you got to do a lot of chasing to occasionally catch a double A-side 45 by the group Elephant's Memory. You've probably heard me talk about Elephant's Memory in the past. Elephant's Memory were a New York City band. They were around in the late 1960s, early 1970s. Their biggest brush with fame was that John and Yoko used them as the backing group on their Sometime in New York City album. Now that is an album that, in my humble opinion, has stood the test of time the worst out of any Beatle-related output. And the reason is because it is so completely topical and in the moment of early 1970s New York City politics. I mean, we're talking about 50 years on. That record came out in 1972. 50 years later, you know, like a lot of the names that are checked on that album are just, you know, mere footnotes in the history books. You know, we all know who Richard Nixon was. We know who Chairman Mao was. We know who Angela Davis still is, actually. But they're not exactly burning hot issues in the daily news anymore. And a lot of the rhetoric and a lot of the sloganeering in the lyrics definitely are very much of the time and of the place. So I don't think that's aged very well. And if any of you guys out there want to agree or disagree, please post a comment. I love hearing what you guys have to say. I'm just one dude spouting opinions. So I want to know what you guys have to say. I think that Sometime in New York City is, I'll even go ahead and say, the weakest John Lennon, Yoko Ono solo album. And don't take that as a license to start taking pot shots at Yoko Ono, okay? Her recorded output is a whole different animal. I'm talking about attempts by John Lennon with Yoko Ono to make a hit rock and roll record. I think that album is quite dated and quite out of date. And that is what leads us back to the group Elephant's Memory. A lot of their stuff was very much in that same time and in that same place and had a lot of the same rhetoric and a lot of the same lyrics, and it just doesn't age well. And they attack a lot of the stuff with this total, you know, late 60s, early 70s sort of like activist, hippie, gung-ho earnestness. So you've got this kind of weird, uncomfortable combination of hip rhetoric addressing issues that have long since gone. And so a lot of their stuff I think is kind of fun, kind of funny, but every once in a while they do hit the mark, you know, because they weren't a bad band. Every now and again there's a song on one of their albums that's just good, just plain old good for the sake of being good. And I love the backstory of the group. I love that time and place, as dated as it may be. So I'm always drawn to Elephant's Memory. And so this is a really weird one because I've known of their records coming out on Apple, of course. And I believe Kama Sutra was the other big label they were on. I had no idea that they released something on Atlantic. This is a completely new thing to me. And it fascinates me. Nobody cares about this band that much anymore, but I love the fact that I discovered a record of theirs I'd never heard of before, and that it was on a label that I didn't even know they recorded for. And reading the label text, generally speaking, if a song on a promo record is from an album, it'll say so. There's no mention whatsoever of an album that this track entitled Shakedown came from. So it appears that it's a single-only release from 1975 by Elephant's Memory. And it wasn't a hit. It came and went. See you later, bye. And 1975 was very late in the game for Elephant's Memory. So, you know, knowing nothing about it, I kind of get this scenario where this is sort of like their last-ditch effort to have a hit record on a new label that was taking a chance on them, and it didn't work. So it's a very interesting piece of history about a band that I have a certain affinity for. And I've heard rumors that members of Elephant's Memory live in Connecticut these days. If anybody knows if that's true or not, also please feel free to post a comment. Whether you're watching live on Facebook or whether you're watching an archived episode on my YouTube channel. So that was one record I found. Another one, this is another one of those things that's just totally weird. It doesn't make any sense at all. My eye was drawn toward immediately. First of all, it was on a label I've never heard of before called Hocter Records. What the hell kind of a name is that? I don't know. It sounds like you're trying to cough up a loogie or something. But a Hocter record, which is a division of Dance Records Incorporated. It's about as generic as you can get. And the layout of the label is about as generic as you can get. Song number 1 is called In the Mood. Song number 2 is called Hot Trip. Okay, right away, the title intrigues me. Anything called Hot Trip is very evocative. Completely generic, no date, no band name. Written by somebody named John J. Morale, which I wonder if that's Jacques Morale? J. Morale and H. Bounty. You know, it makes me think it's got to be Jacques. Ah, listen, guys, guess what? We are on a mutual voyage of discovery right now by reading this label live on Facebook for the first time. I've made the connection. J. Morale is indeed Jacques Morale. What gives it away? The publishing company, Can't Stop Music. That is the label that, the publishing company that the Village People's songs are published on. And Jacques Morale was the guy who wrote and produced the Village People. Well, shit. I just learned something right now live before your very eyes. Okay, so we got a song called Hot Trip, written by the guy who was the mastermind of the Village People, but there's still no indication whatsoever of who the band is or when the dang thing came out. This is really intriguing. And no, I did not look it up on Discogs. I was very much in the moment. The B-side is written by a guy named Garland. Can't read that. Oh, it's written by Garland and Razaf. Don't know who Razaf is, don't know who Garland is, but In the Mood. And it clocks in at 1:59, and the A-side Hot Trip clocks in at 2:21. So, okay, we're going to have some guesswork here. If I had to guess, this would be a pre-Village People production by Jacques Morale. Maybe somebody out there knows. I don't know. I haven't heard this yet either. I don't know anything about it. I just picked it up because it looks interesting. And all I can do is hope that the music on it is any good. Even if it's not, I'm probably going to keep it because it cost me $1. You know, for $1, who cares? And it's at least indirectly a piece of Village People history. And I love the Village People. I'll go ahead and use profanity if you want. In fact, I will. How about this? I'm going to use profanity right now. I fucking love the Village People. Love the Village People. I've talked before on Tent Talks Tunes how disco does not suck. Anybody who says disco sucks, I gotta have a gentlemanly disagreement with you. Disco does not suck. Disco rules, baby. Can I get an amen on that? In fact, I'm kind of expecting to see some thumbs downs. Let's see if anybody out there feels strongly enough about disco to give it a thumbs down. Anybody out there really dislike disco that much? I hope not, because it's really not much of an issue to get worked up over. Although music is, of course, extremely important. Let's see, I got some comments. John Bridges, aka John the Baptist, who has released music by myself. John Bridges actually released the They Hate Us album. She's a very intelligent, classy guy. John Bridges says, I love the Village People. Disco rules. John Coletti. Where did his comment go? Wow, his comment just disappeared. That's pretty weird. Go figure. My Mang Mal Inowski, a.k.a. Joe from Willimantic Records, says that In the Mood on this strange record is the Glen Miller tune. Okay, interesting. So I guess that Jacques Morali was probably doing a Miko sort of thing and doing a disco version of an old standard. That's what I'm guessing. This is what's fun. Guesswork and the brainstorming. Sure, I could probably look it up on Discogs right now, but that's not a whole lot of fun. When I drop the needle on this one later tonight, I'm going to be somewhat warmed up and probably still quite surprised. The thrill of discovery. Here's another one that looked really bizarre. Completely unknown. You see, I'm a sucker for record companies I've never heard of before. When I think I've seen it all, there's always something that I haven't seen. So, okay, here is a record label called Morningstar Records. It's by a group I've never heard of before called Left Side. And the title is called Like a Locomotion. That's what it is on that side of the record. And that's what it is on that side of the record. It's another double A-side promo. Apparently this side is stereo and this side is mono. So right away, same deal. The song title it's kind of weirdly worded. It's semantically incorrect. It's a group I never heard of, a label I've never heard of. It's from 1976. And it was $1. Okay, produced by Peter Koelwijn. Koelewijn. Koelwijn, I'm guessing. A good Dutchman. Written by Peter Koelwijn. And manufactured, and this is where it also gets doubly interesting. I saw this credit in the record store. Manufactured by Springboard International. Springboard International from New Jersey was kind of like the New Jersey equivalent of Pickwick Records from New York, which is to say a super cheesy, borderline sleazy, fly-by-night budget label. The kind of label that would license a bunch of Curtis Knight tracks that just happened to have this guy named Jimi Hendrix playing guitar somewhere in the background and market it as a Jimi Hendrix album. Pickwick did it. Springboard did it. I think everybody did it. So, all right, you've got this cheesy label with a less than stellar, I don't know, pedigree. I mean, they made records that were designed to sell for $2 or $3. But here is an actual attempt by this Springboard Records to release and market an actual record by what is probably an actual band. Right away, I'm really interested, because Pickwick did the exact same thing. Pickwick took a few stabs at actually releasing albums by bands, or at least 45s. That's how the Velvet Underground pretty much started. I mean, the Ostrich by the group The Primitives, that was a Pickwick 45. They tried to make a band out of this weirdo combination of Lou Reed, John Cale, and I forget the other two guys. But they actually wanted to try to get a hit record out of this new band featuring these dudes. That's how these things came about. So, okay, it's got a strange pedigree from a sleazy budget label. It's by people I've never heard of before. And the song title's just a little bit weird. I already probably like it. I'm going to give it a listen tonight. Now, the next couple of records I found are definitely a twofer. And by the way, let's check the comments here. Let's see if we've had any people outraged by disco enough to disconnect. Well, Tony Autoharp Arena, my good pal in New York, he says that Food Fight is the best Village People song. I might agree with you there, Tony. I just might. Food Fight from the Renaissance album, which is the Village People's new wave album, which, A, you got to see it to believe it. B, you got to hear it to believe it. And Food Fight, lost new wave classic. If anybody out there wants to put an image search, post a link to the Renaissance era Village People, please do, because if you guys haven't seen the Village People from the Renaissance era, I guarantee you ain't seen nothing like it. And I love that album. To the Village People in their new romantic phase. Big toast. All right, so I am digging, looking through the cheapo records, and I find what is basically the bane of any crate digger's existence. Why? Because there are trillions of them. And this definitely ties into what I said a second ago about disco. I still stand by my assertion that disco does not suck. But there are many crappy disco records. My God, there's a lot of crappy disco records out there. And it's the same with any genre, okay? There's plenty of crappy heavy metal records out there. There's plenty of crappy punk rock records out there. There's plenty of crappy classic rock records out there. Genre has nothing to do with it, kids. It doesn't matter what genre it is. There are good records, and there are crappy records, and there are a lot of crappy disco records. And usually you can spot them pretty quickly. A real hallmark is when you're digging, and you come across one of these things. It's the generic RCA disco sleeve with a mismatched record inside of it. In this case, a TK disco record. Now, RCA, they're one of the reasons why disco always got a bad name, because they were strictly opportunist. Excuse me, RCA did not know about disco, did not care about disco. They had no feel for it, they had no affinity for it, but they ground out boatloads of disco 12-inch singles just trying to cash in and make a buck. That's it. That's all they were interested in. That's all they cared about. That's all they knew. And I've only found one RCA disco 12-inch ever that was worth a good goddamn. And not only that, it's one of my all-time favorite disco records. And if I ever get around to doing a disco top 10, which I might, I will reveal the name of that disco song. Because I think I'll go right ahead and say it is my single favorite disco track of all. And it came out on RCA, believe it or not. But yeah, you have to look at 17 million generic RCA disco 12-inch singles to find that one. And I'm going to go right ahead and say that TK Disco, sure, they were from Florida, they were from Miami, the home of KC and the Sunshine Band, and a lot of great soul artists, including Timmy Thomas, who is the subject of this particular 12-inch single, and of course Gwen McCrae, a whole bunch of others. I was not a big fan of the vast majority of their disco output. For me, the main reason is because a lot of it had a Latin influence, And I'm just not a fan of Latin music. It's just not my thing. The sort of the Latin percussion, I really don't like it. It grates on my ear. The sort of Latin polyrhythmic approach, it's just not my thing. You know, I will never ever say that it's bad music or that it sucks. It's just not my thing. And that's why I don't like a lot of the TK disco, because it's very Latin influenced and it's just not my thing. But I looked anyway. I looked anyway. You know why I looked? You know why I looked anyway? I'll tell you why. The reason I looked anyway, and the reason why this record is in my possession right now, is because TK Records had a staff songwriter who I really like, who I love and respect immensely, and by whom I'm releasing a record fairly soon. Think about that. Yes, I squinted hard at the label, and I saw that indeed, not only is the record by Timmy Thomas, who I do like Timmy Thomas quite a bit, not only does it have a great song title, Freak In, Freak Out, but glory, hallelujah, stupid! It was indeed written by the staff writer, who I'm a great big fan of. I doubt you can see it on my low-res camera. The song was co-written by a dude named Clarence Reed. Yes, Clarence Reed was the co-writer, along with someone named I.J. Kitts. Right? I don't know who I.J. Kitts is. And Timmy Thomas co-wrote the B-side. But Clarence Reed. I combed the cheat bins looking for songwriting credits by Clarence Reed. So this is a really good combination. Clarence Reed wrote a song that Timmy Thomas produced. So right off the bat, this was a score for me. Does anybody else regard it as a score? Probably not, but I do. Same deal with this other extremely cheap 45 I found. It's, I believe, a TK subsidiary label called Alston, or Alston. Not sure. This one was manufactured by Atlantic Records. I think Alston had something to do with TK. I'm not really sure. But kind of the same deal. Florida label. I didn't have to squint that hard because it says right there on the label, it's by Clarence Reed himself. And I was drawn to the song title, entitled Send Me Back My Money. Right from the gate, I was intrigued by the song title, Give Me Back My Money. And then it's by Clarence Reed. And not only that, check this out, it's written by a guy named Jerry Williams Jr. Now I see already by looking at the monitor here, my good pal James Pogo has correctly identified Clarence Reed as Blowfly. Yes, the great, the immortal Blowfly is the guy who co-wrote this Timmy Thomas 12-inch and who performs this record, which was written by Jerry Williams Jr. Okay, now, I see my old pal Barry Soltz is watching right now, and I know Barry knows the answer. And Barry just posted the story that I was hoping he would post. If you guys want to know a really awesome tale about Clarence Reed, read Barry's comment. It's priceless. It's gold. And Barry, please elaborate on the story a little bit more, because I think the people need to know about this. And while you're at it, who's going to tell me the identity of Jerry Williams Jr., who wrote the song that Clarence Reed performs? This is like doubleheader A-list all-star eccentricity. If you thought that Clarence Reed and Timmy Thomas was something, Clarence Reed and fill in the blank is something else. Jerry Williams Jr. You can see why I popped my cork when I saw this and paid the $1 for it. Will it ever sell for more than $1? Probably not. But as we know, it's a good thing that music is not judged by how much it sells for. It's a damn good thing. Or maybe it's a bad thing, because if it were, I'd be a quadrillionaire right now, based on my output. Just saying. Has anybody taken a guess as to who? And Barry Soltz once again takes the prize. Jerry Williams Jr. is the great, and I use that word again, but it's true, Swamp Dogg. Swamp Dogg himself wrote a song performed by the man who is Blowfly. It really hardly gets better than that. There is really not much on this planet better than that. So I'm a happy guy, baby. Happy, 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 happy. Whew, and that was just the 45s. Oh my god. I still got a whole bunch of albums to go. I found a whole bunch of albums. Man, I'm going to have to cut this short a little bit because, as I've told you guys before, I live in my little cabin out in the woods here, and it is springtime, and the pollen is thick in the air, and it goes right to my larynx. So my voice is starting to get kind of a little bit crusty and a little bit rusty. So I might just cut it short. And I might have to save the albums. In fact, I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut it just a little bit short, guys, because my voice is going. I'm so excited talking about these records that I'm projecting an awful lot, and I'm covered in pollen, and I literally lack the physical means to talk anymore. I've got to stop. If people out there want to know when is he going to stop, I'm telling you now. Now. I'm going to stop now. So I'll do the albums on a future episode of Tent Talks Tunes. You have my promise, because there's too many of them and they're too much fun to talk about to just let them go. So that leads to when the next episode is going to be. I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to be on next week, because as I mentioned earlier, I will soon be departing for the Queen City of Charlotte, North Carolina, the almighty Anti-Scene, for whom I strum the thunder lumba. The almighty Anti-Scene is breaking in a new guitar player. By the way, here's some visuals for you. It's a genuine Anti-Scene sticker. And somebody asked me the other day, they said, man, how come all your Anti-Scene stuff's got those Japanese characters on it? Well, I'll tell you. One of our fans in Japan translated the name Anti-Scene into the Japanese characters An, Ti, Se, En, which I believe translates into blood, darkness, fear, death, or something like that. Kind of heavy. It's not really what we're all about, but if you approach it from a professional wrestling viewpoint, okay, it makes a lot of sense. Plus, it looks great. So anyway, we're breaking a new guitar player. The new guitar player for Anti-Scene is the most excellent Walt Wheat, guitar player for Hattiesburg, Mississippi's own Before I Hang. Kindred spirits and brethren. So very excited to have Walt in the band now, and our first rehearsals are this weekend. So I'm going down to Charlotte to do that. I will be gone for a few days. I will probably be back by next Wednesday, but as we all know, this world is nothing but imponderables, variables, X factors, and just downright weird ass shit. You never know what's going to happen. So I try very hard not to predict the future. So maybe not. I don't know. I'll let you know. I'll post about it. Keep your eye on social media. Let's take one last check to see who's got to say about what. Ooh, okay. Ah, yes, okay, Barry, yes. Barry is posting the complete story about Clarence Reed and the phone bill. Love it. There's John Coletti. John Coletti, a.k.a. Sex Bomb from Connecticut's Seizure, and currently the guitar player for Supercharger 66. Love that band. John says that he hung out with Blowfly. Funny, nice guy. Rest in peace. Definitely. Rest in peace, Fly. And, yes, lots of comments from lots of people, and that's good. And I will mention, too, I said about earlier, coming up on the TPOS release schedule is a reissue of the Anti-Scene Blowfly split 7-inch single. Came out a few years ago. It's coming back out on TPOS. So there's something for you to look forward to, and something for me to look forward to. And for people who love Blowfly and love Anti-Scene, for all of us to look forward to. And I'm looking forward to giving my poor old tired larynx a break. Thank you everybody for tuning in. It's always a pleasure to log on live and yip yap and yammer to all you folks. I do kind of sort of think that I'll be back in about 167 hours time. So until then, or whenever it is that we meet again, this is Malcolm Tent saying so long from the Nutmeg State.